And we've learned that President Biden personally halted a deal which would have seen Polish MiG-29 aircraft donated to Ukrainian fighter pilots. Well, I can speak now to Hanna Hopko, the former chair of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. She's been meeting with Western governments to appeal for more military support for her country, including the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Hopko was one of the civic leaders of Ukraine's Euromaidan uprising and is chairwoman of Ukraine's Democracy in Action conference. Hanna is now in Poland after being told that she was on a Russian kill list. She joins us from there. Hello, Hanna.
Hello, nice to hear you.
And you, and welcome to the programme. Thanks very much for being with us. Look, we've been hearing this morning that Russian forces are getting close to the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, and that the barrage on the city has widened and intensified. What are you hearing from people still in Kyiv? How long can Kyiv hold out?
So 5 my best friends are now in Kyiv. Some of them joined and they are a part of Ukraine armed forces, plus territorial defense and volunteers. So I ask them 3 times a day, actually, what is the situation there? And many stories, and I'm sure that Kyiv will be protected by our army. And as Putin failed with his aggressive blitzkrieg scenario, and the same will happen now with their attempts actually to control Kyiv.
Yeah, but they must be living on the edge. There must be an incredible nervousness and fear about the approach.
Yes, and one friend of mine told me, like, Hanna, just 3 days ago, this was my 2nd birthday. I was crying because I know this friend for many years, and he told me about they are fighting this Kadyrov people, the killers, and how they stopped some of them. So this is very dangerous situation, but there is no option how to destroy Russians' plan and actually to stop all these criminals which Putin sent to Ukraine, including Wagner Group, Kadyrovs, and actually we demand to recognize Russia as a sponsor of terrorism, state sponsor, and private military entities like Wagner Group should be recognized as a terroristic organization. It's not enough to impose restrictions. We need recognition as a terroristic organization because they are everywhere, Wagner Group, in Africa, in Syria, in Ukraine, not just in Donbass. They are moving closer to Kyiv.
So recognition of Russia as being sponsoring terrorist groups is one of the things you're asking for. Tell us a bit about what you've been asking for as well from the United States and from other governments, and what officials you've been meeting with.
So we already met with State Secretary Blinken, with the congressional delegation, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Belgium, with Estonian delegation, and they are planning next week to visit Washington. There are all MPs from Baltic states whom I know from my service as the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, Latvia, they are afraid. This is why they are helping us, because they understand that they will be next if we do not stop Putin at the battlefield in Ukraine, because Russian war against NATO already started. And I'm here in Poland, and people in Poland, they also ask a question about the credibility of NATO.
Yeah.
Because I have just one question, simple question. Does morality end at the NATO border?
Look, you have asked for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Do you understand why many in the West, including Joe Biden, it seems, feels that it cannot impose a no-fly zone over a non-NATO country? Do you see where they're coming from?
Actually, more than 70% of Americans, they support no-fly zone. More than 50% of American people, because American people, they are brave people, and they demand from US leadership to deploy American troops to defeat Russians at the Ukrainian territory. So there are other options how to protect Ukraine if you are not ready for no-fly zone. Provide us more anti-aircraft and air defense missiles, more javelins, more drones. Turkish Bayraktars is destroying Russian tanks. And actually, this is why for all these 17 days of war, Russians failed. 3 Russian generals were killed. Some Kadyrov's group also were destroyed by Ukrainian army. So we are winning. So to see victory closer, we need more military assistance, and not like this ping pong that Poland is giving us fighter jets because the US given green light. But then in 2 days, no, we have to receive approval from the whole 30 NATO members. So please provide us weapon. Don't tell about this publicly. You know how to do it without any public official statements.
Do you, I mean, so obviously the sort of the leaders in the United States, the United Kingdom, in many NATO countries, they do feel there is a line that they are not willing to cross in order to bring themselves and bring NATO into open conflict with Russia. You've said that NATO is already in conflict with Russia. Do you feel that it is wrong of countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, to still be talking about this line?
Look, UK and the US, there were two main security guarantors to Ukraine when we gave up with the third largest nuclear power. So actually, it's your moral duty now not to stay and observe how many kids will be killed in next hours and days. So there are many ways how to protect Ukraine, not just sanctions. We demanded to impose sanctions on people like Abramovich, Lebedev, and other Russian oligarchs. What about deportation of their children to Russia, for example? Why they are enjoying the luxury of the civilized nation's life? When Ukrainian kids, look, I cannot stop crying seeing what's happened in Mariupol. In Mariupol, when this attack on maternity and children hospital in Mariupol, so this is a grave violation of international humanitarian law. So, and one day Putin will be punished together with Mr. Lavrov, with Mr. Shoigu, because they are war criminals.
You say don't be afraid of Putin. What do you think he will or won't do if the West did upscale its military involvement?
So look, in 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine and this illegal annexation of Crimea happened, have you seen the Sixth Fleet of the US in the Black Sea helping us to stop another further military offensive in Donbass? So now we are paying a price of the lack of leadership in the Western world. So this is why the victory of Ukraine, geopolitically important, not just for European continent, also for Indo-Pacific region, because authoritarian regimes like in Russia, then in China, they have their appetites regarding Taiwan, regarding other countries in the Pacific region. So two against all. And now one Ukraine is against enemy. And also we have to convince our friends to give us more military weapons. I'm not asking US or UK leaders to send us troops. The fighting spirit of Ukrainian nation are so high. So this is the reason why victory of Ukraine is coming. But please, it's about avoiding massive losses. I have friends who are now in Mariupol. We lost contacts with them because there is no electricity, internet communication, and others. 400,000 people are now suffering. They are drinking water from snow. They are boiling snow just to prepare something. These pregnant women, the whole world saw these pictures. She gave birth, small, cute daughter, but she has nothing to feed this daughter.
We have seen, I mean, so many horrific images and pictures coming out of Ukraine. Basically, Russia behaving in Ukraine as we know that Russia sponsored violence in Syria. Do you think if Ukraine falls, is this what would Putin do next? If Ukraine falls, is this the picture for other former Soviet countries, for Poland? Is this the kind of fears that people should have?
Look, let me be very honest. I believe in God. Ukraine will never fall, never again. If for the West, you could just produce statements saying never again, and then silently see how Russia bombs Babin Yar, it's after 80 years of Nazi massacre against Ukrainian Jews. But we are fighting. And actually, this is God blessing us now. All these victims, This is for victory and also for the whole world to wake up, because it's also important for Moldova. It's important for Georgia to restore their territorial integrity and sovereignty. And I'm asking the West, do you have a strategy when Ukraine defeat Russia? And what is the post-Putin Russia? What is your plan? Because in Ukraine, we have planned how to restore Ukrainian territorial integrity, how to recover Ukraine's economy, how to rebuild infrastructure, how to help other nations which are suffering from authoritarianism. But I'm asking the West, collective West, do you have a plan what to do if after our victory with Russia, we will see something what happened with Soviet Union when Soviet Union collapsed?
Yeah, I mean that's a sort of fascinating and horrifying next question to ask. Look, before I let you go, today the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, he hit out at the UK government for, he said, failing to live up to its grand statements on helping Ukrainian refugees. To what extent do you agree with that criticism? To what extent, indeed, should our governments be focusing on refugees versus military help, or is it just both?
Actually, first, it's Ukrainian victory, because refugees, this is the consequences of Russian war, ongoing full-scale war. So you have to help us to stop a war, to punish Putin, and you have many means. And I don't understand why German banks now are helping Russian oligarchs to launder money. Something happened in 2014 when Yanukovych left Ukraine. So please stop playing these double games and appeasing and supporting Putin now. So this is why refugees is important, but the more important to stop the war and not to allow Putin to kill Ukrainians, because more refugees will be coming. I will be back to Ukraine. This is my country. I believe in Ukraine. I believe in geopolitical mission of Ukraine in 21st century. So this is why refugees, it's second issue. First, how to win the war. And please don't be afraid. I don't believe that Putin will push the button, because technologically it's not easy just to push and then the world will be in the nuclear world war. No, because there are other people. Putin is blackmailing, and nobody like people who have stolen billions from Russian society. They want to enjoy life, and they don't want to be destroyed in the nuclear war. And Putin has his family and others. So one day they will start thinking how to replace Putin. So the West must demonstrate strongest. And so I'm urgently asking to US, to UK, to NATO to demonstrate leadership in standing up to Putin's expansionist campaign. Not since Adolf Hitler have we witnessed the actions of the regime that now poses this existential threat, not only for Ukraine, but also for Europe and for the whole world. So please, because in China, it's not just about food crisis, because this Russian full-scale war is a reason, a cause why we will be facing economical crisis, food crisis. Ukraine is number 5, is among top 5 exporter of food.
Yeah, so it goes everywhere. Look, thank you very much indeed. That is Hanna Hopko, the former chair of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, who's been meeting with Western governments to appeal for more military support. And thank you, Hanna, very much indeed for joining us. And we wish
God bless Ukraine and save the Queen.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us.